everybody. Today I am going to show you how to edit the photographs of your artwork. There is nothing more frustrating as an artist or really as a teacher when you see either your students work really hard on a project and then they turn in a photograph that is lackluster. It just does not show the kind of effort that was really put into the work. So today I'm going to show you how to take those bad photographs of artwork and make them better. So I'm going to use an app called SnapSeed, and it is my favorite photo editing app. It really is very intuitive, and students really can pick it up pretty easily. So it opens up to a screen like this, and you would click open, and you would pick the bad photograph of the artwork. Okay, so I picked a couple here, and so what I'm gonna do is open up the artwork. So it shows up on the right side a couple of filters, but I never ever use filters. I use this little pencil icon, which is the middle icon here, and this gives me a whole array of editing tools. Okay, I have really not explored all of the options in this app, but today I'm going to keep it pretty simple to just some basic editing. So the first thing first, when I look at this picture, it was taken at an angle. I know that this picture, it actually has straight edges and that it's all, mapped out really nicely, but you can see that if the photograph is taken at an angle, it looks kind of warped. So we're going to fix that warp. Over at the top really is what we're going to focus on. So if I go over here to perspective, there is an editing feature. And now there's a couple of these that you can work with photography as well, but I'm going to click this free mode, okay? There's a couple of different ones here that you can really work with depending on what it is that you need, but if you have an image like mine where the corners need to be pulled up, free mode is the best. Now look at it, it figures out where the corners of your artwork are, so that if you just take the corner that needs to be moved and drag it up, you can see that it already moves it for you. I'm going to do the same again, or I'm going to click the check mark, and now I'm going to do it for the lower part here. You can just kind of keep going through, and the grid really helps you match that up. So I'm just going to keep kind of going through. You can see that it's going to need to be cropped afterwards, but this gives me a pretty good way to work with that warping, okay? So I'm gonna check that through. Now, this is a black and white image, but it's got this yellow tone to it. The paper just does not look white. So I'm gonna go to editing first. I'm gonna crop those extra edges off. And so I'm just gonna click the free mode, and if I go over to the corner, I can go right to these edges. She's got a little writing there, so I'm going to come to that edge. Okay, so now I've cropped all of those edges. Now I'm going to just go through and tune my image. Now in tuning, it has all of those basic features that I would suggest for all of my students to use with the work. Everything can have a little bit of tuning to it. So for an image that should be black and white, brightness is really going to be key. Now with SnapSeed, you just start to drag on the screen. So I'm going to drag to the right, and it gets really bright, and I'm going to drag to the left, and it gets really dark. I'm just going to kind of pull that up. Another thing with black and white images, if you're taking a picture of it at home, depending on the light source that you're using, it will have a yellow tone to it, or a blue tone to it, or something that's just not accurate to the work that you're actually creating, and that can be edited in saturation. So saturation is talking about the vibrancy of the color, and if something is black and white, you don't want to have any saturation. So look, when I bring that down, I really see it looks more like a true black and a true white. So now I can go with my contrasting feature, and contrast increases the difference between your darks and your lights. So for a black and white image, contrast is everything. because that's really key to the work that you're creating. So if I pull it up, it really looks a lot better. You know, some of these other features we'll use with color artwork, but really if you're working with a black and white image, you're going to start messing around with brightness, contrast, and saturation the most. If brightness or contrast are too much, you might want to check out highlights, because that will just affect the lightest parts of your picture, and shadows will just affect the darkest parts of your picture. So that is a really nice way to edit your black and white photos as well. So once you're done with something, you can click over here and click save, and you can save it over your image, or you could save it as a copy of your image. I'm going to save it as a copy so I can show you a back or side-by-side image of the editing. So I'm just going to pull up another black and white image that has a lot of color that's coming from the light source this picture is taken in. So you can see that pink over on the left side. So I'm going to first go in and take that away with my tuning of my images. And I'm just going to go to edit. I'm going to take my saturation and bring it down. And I'm going to just start to do those things with my brightness and my contrast and my highlights and my shadows. Sometimes I go back and do the shadows and then I come back and do the highlights again. Sometimes you want to do the darker stuff before so it doesn't get lost. Ooh. See, if I go too much, I start to lose some of the pen work and the pen details. So you got to find out what is going to look best for the image that you are creating to best represent it, that it really actually looks like in real life. All right, let's at least get one image that is in color to see the options that we have here. So first off, this is a screenshot, so we've got to crop out some of these edges. Now this is a beautiful painting, but we can tell that it might be a little bit dark in the room. Sometimes with canvas, you'll also get a little bit of a shine taken from the image. This one doesn't have that as much. That is all something to consider as you are editing, so that we just don't lose the detail. Just like with pen, we don't want to lose the detail of the brush strokes or the color or those middles. A lot of times it's the middle values that get lost when we edit. So it's all taking the time to see what this image truly needs. So I'm going to go into my tuning again, and I'm going to start to just kind of play back and forth and seeing what this image needs. I'm going to create a little bit of contrast first. And then I'm going to go back into my brightness. Again, if we do brightness too early, it might lose some of those details. Now with saturation here, I don't want to go all the way down because it's going to bring it into a black and white image. We want to pull those colors out just a little bit. Now look at how saturation makes those colors a little bit more vibrant, but nothing that's too much away from what the artist intended their work to look like. You don't want to really filter and change what the artist wanted their artwork to look like. So ambiance creates a warmth to it, but it also pulls a little bit of saturation as well. I'm going to stick into highlights. Highlights is going to bring it. Now I know that that circle behind her head is supposed to be a bright white, so that really helps me when I know what something is supposed to be colored. It helps me make these choices a little bit more. Warmth is going to create that like yellow tone to this. I don't want that as much because that doesn't look like that's what this image is supposed to have. It actually looks like it needs to have a little bit more coolness to it. Yeah, just a slight bit. I'm using the edges of the canvas to give me the idea, especially the lower parts of the canvas. The color that should be white, or at least a light purple, is looking more like a cream color to me. So I'm gonna just pull this a little bit over to the left. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and press the check mark and save this image as is. I hope this tutorial is able to help you accurately represent your students' efforts in their artwork. During remote learning, we are all limited. As teachers, we are limited with the images that we have to represent our students' work, and our students are limited with the materials and what they have access to actually create the photo representations of their artwork. So SnapSeed is a great way to fill in those gaps when necessary. It would be amazing and awesome to get perfectly well photographed artwork, but that is not always the case. And SnapSeed really helps us represent our students' effort in the best way possible. So I hope you were able to create beautiful images to represent your lessons and all of the amazing things your students are creating this year.